light. Shadows creep and crawl with every scream. Hear the echoes call. Synths and guitars in a haunting blend. An 80s vibe where the terror transcends. Shocktoberfest, scream until dawn. In your nightmares, the terror's reborn. Lights flash, monsters take flight. Embrace the darkness, it's a metal night.
How's it going, everybody? Wildman Wes here, and welcome back for day 25 of Shocktoberfest 80s Rewind. We are now into the year 1988. As you can see with the shirt that I'm wearing, it's going to be very much like Hard Rock Zombies. We've got a metal music movie. And not just that, we also have a Troma release movie. I do love me my Troma films, even if some of them are not the greatest, but I digress. Today we're going to be talking about Black Roses. This movie is about a metal band of said name, Black Roses, that's going to a small town called Mill Basin, where they're going to put on a show for the students at one of the high schools. Now, Mill Basin being a small town and very conservative, they're not having it at all, and they plan to cancel the show. Well, the kids are starting to have a big issue about that, and even one of the teachers at the school named Mr. Morehouse, he feels for the kids because of the fact that, maybe these bands aren't that bad. And he also speaks with one of the members, the frontman Damien, to see exactly what their message is about and why it's so important for this concert to take place. Well, as these concerts are taking place, the town shows up, and they see at the beginning of these shows, everything seems fine. It seems very folk music-y. And they sit there going, well, what were we concerned about? So they all leave the students with the band. Well, once they leave, music changes from folk-style music to hard rock and roll and metal, and the fans and the kids go nuts. The following day, it turns out that the band is going to be playing not just one show, but multiple shows. And the students start to appear a little bit different, a little bit more apathetic towards learning and education, as well as just wanting to do anything with their lives other than go to see these shows. Now, Mr. Morehouse starts to notice this, and he starts asking some of the students, particularly one named Julie, who he has a very good bond with, and Julie's little friend John does not like it at all because he has a crush on her, but there's that little triangle going on, and it's just kind of awkward if you ask me. However, the students aren't listening to Mr. Morehouse whatsoever. They continue to go to these shows and get the albums from the band. They take them home, and some of the parents that come across these albums, they don't make it out alive in some of the most outlandish fashions possible. Eventually, Mr. Morehouse has to figure out a way to stop the brainwashing of the students with all this demonic music being played for them at these concerts. And Mr. Morehouse confronts Damien at the final hour, has an epic battle of a minute and a half, and defeats him. And the auditorium bursts into flames. Some students make it out, some don't. And Mr. Morehouse meets up with some friends later, and it turns out the Black Roses made it out of that situation alive and well, touring to Madison Square Garden, and followed up with a tour of the UK. That's the best way I could describe this movie without getting into too much detail. This is one of those movies that I honestly never heard of, and looking at it, I was actually rather impressed for what it was. Now, granted, just because it's a Troma film and I'm a big fan of Troma does not mean that I'm going to let it go unscathed with some of the things that I didn't like. And we're going to talk about those right now. I have two main things that I'm not the greatest fan about this film. As I mentioned before, this was a Troma release. And normally with Troma, when it comes to the violence and gore factor, it's very over the top. And this movie definitely doesn't have as much of that as anything that's completely made completely by Troma, such as if Lloyd Kaufman was completely involved in the production. They weren't really involved in this production, they more or less just got the rights. However, I have said in the past that what you don't see when it comes to violence and gore in a horror film can sometimes make it more terrifying. In this situation, they really didn't do well on that one. And especially, not just being a horror movie, this is, in a way, a horror comedy with a lot of the social commentary. The other thing that I didn't like about it was the final battle between Mr. Morehouse and Damien, when Damien becomes the full-on demon. And you'd think that if he's going to have this final transformation into the big demon to fight good, he's going to be this behemoth. No, he looked like an average person in a quasi-rubber jumpsuit. That's the best way I can describe that one, and I kind of went, oof, this movie was doing so well, and then it just kind of derailed right at the end. Those are the only few things that I can say to knock this movie, and they're not that bad. There's a lot of great things about this movie that I appreciate, especially the social commentary, because Black Roses is definitely, because being a quasi-trauma release, it's going to be a horror comedy. And with the social commentary that I mentioned, in this town of Mill Basin, it's very conservative, where they're saying they're kind of shaking the finger a la Footloose or something like that, where certain music that isn't the wholesome style is bad, it's evil. And there's a slight inaudible reference to the concept of playing records backwards, like Judas Priest or Ozzy Osbourne. And then they also say the things of, well, remember when we were kids, Elvis, our parents didn't like Elvis, our parents didn't like the Beatles, they didn't like Chuck Berry or Little Richard and all those other artists. There is another inaudible reference in this film as well. This movie was made in 1988, and in 1985 we did have the issue with censorship of music with the federal government, and hence the parental advisory stickers were being slapped onto albums. And in that whole case, we had people from Frank Zappa to Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, and even John Denver advocating for music purposes and not being censored. And as much as the reference of the parental advisory situation is involved, one of the mainstays of wanting to censor music or putting parental advisory stickers onto albums was Tipper Gore. And the woman that's in this small town in the film has the Tipper Gore attitude. However, the image or the way how she presents herself is very Nancy Reagan, so that was kind of funny for the social commentary of this film. Other things I love about this is the special effects. It is very Evil Dead and Raimi-esque, especially when some of the students start to become demonic possessed and turn into demons, especially during a big fight scene with Mr. Morehouse and a demon that is posed as Julie. And there is a little odd fan service in that moment, but I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. We also have a little bit of an homage to Children of the Corn in a way, because these students are becoming more possessed, and they are trying to take out the adults. And it is not a ripoff at all, it has that vibe. And I dig that, because they didn't sit there doing like the blessed is he who walks amongst the rows. It's more or less, it's because Damien, the lead singer of the Black Roses, is the leader of this little community of students that is going to take out the town. The music is charming in itself, because they definitely try to make the movie feel terrifying, but funny at the same time. And in the funny moments, especially when Mr. Morehouse is investigating the situation of the students being corrupted, as well as the police arriving at the end, it sounds like an episode of the A-Team, and it was kind of cool, because I used to watch that as a kid, especially on reruns, and I was waiting for Mr. T to show up and go, "I pay the fool who don't like the Black Roses. I pay the fool who don't like the metal music. Don't give me that jibber-jabber, fool." I'm sorry, I couldn't resist doing an impression. It wasn't the greatest, but hey, it is what it is, right folks? Now it's time to grade this film. When I mentioned the things that I didn't like of the toned down violence and gore in a film that was released by Troma, and also the concept of the character Damien in his demon form going out like a punk at the final battle, they don't outweigh the good of this film. However, there has to be some accountability made, and for that accountability, Black Roses gets a B+. It is definitely one of those films that I could watch again, because there might be some things that I missed. There might be some things that I'm giving too much credit for. However, we're just going to leave it at a B+. We hope you enjoyed this review of Black Roses. If you've seen this movie before and you agree, leave a thumbs up. If not, there's a comment section below. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't like about this film. I really am interested because I'm tired of just hearing myself talk half the time in these things, and we still have 6 more movies to go. Other than that, make sure you share on social media, but most importantly, push that little red button and ring that bell for instant notifications. Until then, I'm Wildman Wes, and we will see you tomorrow for day 26 of Shocktoberfest 80s Rewind. Take care, and as always, stay scared, but keep on rocking.